You are about to participate in the most ambitious culinary experiment ever imagined.
This competition is going to test everything.
Adapt quickly to anything. I mean anything. The wildest day of your life starts right now.
Series premiere 24 and 24, Last Chef Standing. Sunday night at 8 on Food Network. Stream on Max.
The Vietnam War, it's over. Your job's just begun.
A new HBO original limited series.
Welcome to the world of spycraft. Strap in.
From executive producers Park Chan-wook and Robert Downey Jr.
What are you concealing?
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen.
What if I told you that I was a communist spy?
How did you become this?
The Sympathizer, streaming April 14th on Max. Subscription required.
Welcome back to the Husband Coach's Corner. Today, we're talking about laughter in marriage, the importance of it, and why we should be doing it. Now, before we go too deep into the topic, I do want to make you aware that the Patreon page is up and running. So if that's something you're looking for to go deeper in your relationship building, your ability to be a better husband, then consider checking out the link in the description or the show notes. So that way you can join the community. If you got questions, you can always reach out to me, husbandcoach2020@gmail.com. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the topic of laughter, because laughter is extremely, extremely important. All right. Now, we all know that when we laugh, we release endorphins and it helps to reduce stress. So the entire crux of today's episode and the way that you are going to be successful in your marriage when it comes to laughter and building your relationship is really down to the fact that when you laugh, you release stress. And guess what marriage is full of sometimes is stress. Even if your marriage isn't full of stress, there's at least some stressors in marriage that will cause you to have conflict. It'll cause you to have differences. And if you can't find a way to spend time with your wife in a fun and humorous manner, then you're going to have a hard time overcoming some of the differences in your relationship. And ultimately, that's going to weigh on your overall relationship and marriage. This can impact, this can have generational issues and stuff like that. So learning to laugh with your wife is crucial to success in marriage. I personally love laughing with my wife whenever we have something that we can laugh at. Most of the time, I'll be honest, it comes from TV shows. Sometimes it comes from inside jokes. And when you can laugh at inside jokes with your wife, that's a true blessing, because that means you guys are sharing a bond and experiences that others may not have already experienced. Okay? There's just so many things, like so many levels, that we're not going to unpack them all on this episode. I really just want to sell you on the idea that you got to learn to laugh with your wife. And really what this comes down to is two things. One, you're spending time with your wife in a way that no one else really does, because you are building those experiences and those relationships. But two, you are coming together to hopefully reduce the overall stress and tension in your marriage, because God didn't design marriage to be this stressful, combative type of thing. He actually designed it to be this harmonious type of relationship between man and woman, so that way we can subdue the earth and just be blessed by our spouse. Now, the challenge is, when sin entered into the world, it destroyed the construct of marriage, and there's been all of this stress, not only in marriage, but the stress that's on the world. And that's why every marriage, regardless of what you believe, you will have problems and challenges and conflict. And, I've talked a number of times about how you can overcome conflict in your marriage, but this is less of overcoming conflict and more of a proactive way of staying stress-free in your marriage. And that's really the main reason why we want to laugh in our marriage. So now that we understand why it's important, right? We want to release stress in our marriage. Let's talk about how laughing strengthens the bonds between two people. All right. So when you have a good experience or a joke or something that came about while you were hanging out with your wife, and it's something that you guys can always reference, there's some couples that say, well, we'll always have Miami. And to you and me, it may not mean anything, but to them, that means a whole lot. And that could be something that's funny. It could be, a little funny. It could be extremely funny. I don't know. It could be extremely serious, whatever. The idea here is when we laugh with one another, we are growing closer in a intimate way. Now, I want to be very careful here because I don't want you to get this confused with saying, like, if you laugh with anyone else, then you're growing closer and more intimate with that person. In a way, yes, you are, but not the way that I'm talking about in marriage, all right? But in the way of friendship, which is extremely important, you are growing closer in both regards. And that's why we want to strengthen the bonds between our friendship and our relationship, because if we aren't strengthening our relationship with our wife, our friendship with our wife, then we are really setting ourselves up for failure. So this is the reason why, why we want to laugh, but also how it strengthens the bond when we are sitting there, maybe spending some time watching a TV show, a movie. Maybe it's a dad joke every day. And as corny as that sounds, I will tell you that my wife loves when I tell her stupid, silly dad jokes, and she doesn't laugh like crazy, hysterically. I'm not like some professional comedian, but it's something that catches her off guard. And when it catches her off guard, it keeps her a little bit more interested in the relationship, keeps her more interested in me because she doesn't know what I'm going to say or how I'm going to deliver it. Sometimes I do silly things where I don't even intend to do a silly thing, but I can tell that it's something that makes my wife laugh. So I do it and we laugh together. Now, I want to also be careful here. Don't make yourself the laughing stock or the class clown, because if you become seen as the clown in the relationship, then it'll be hard for your wife to take you serious. So you got to do this with taste. And if you do want to be at the butt end of any of your jokes or circumstances to make your wife laugh, then it should be sparingly, because you want your wife to still see you as her prized husband, just as you would want to see your wife as your prized wife, right? Like your beloved. So don't overdo it, but enjoy yourself, right? Have fun with your wife. Let her know that you are still very much capable of having fun and making her laugh, because one of the things that I've learned early on in at least my marriage, and I imagine is the same in many marriages from the men and women that I've talked to, is when they laugh, they grow closer together. And every woman has said to me, in my family, as well as family friends, they've said that I remember this time when this person did, and then you fill in the blank, and it made me laugh, is how that ends. Like 9 times out of 10, I remember the time when, Johnny did this and it was so funny, and, or something like that, right? That is a connection that's instantly being made. Now, for those of you who are engaged, or maybe you are dating, looking to find a wife, you got to get her laughing. All right. And don't try to force it. Make it genuine. All right. The reason you want to make it genuine is because sometimes your humor could be sarcastic. Now, I know there's some women out there that may think sarcasm is cute, and if that's in your relationship, then okay. But hear me out. I don't believe sarcasm is the best in any relationship, because sarcasm is really rooted in this arrogance type of mindset. And even though it could be funny, it could also be rude, it could be demeaning, and there's a balance there. And one thing that I will tell you that doesn't fare well in relationships over the years is sarcasm, even if it started with sarcasm. And for us as men, we seem to be the most sarcastic in the relationship sometimes. And if that is what we think our wife is okay with, then we'll continue being sarcastic just like that in the rest of the marriage, and that's going to cause issues down the line. I've seen more issues with sarcasm in marriage than I have seen relationships that are successful. And let me rephrase that, because I don't want you to be like, oh man, sarcasm is going to like kill my marriage. No, it's just going to add tension. It's going to add stress, and this is why we want to get to learning how to make our wife laugh, excite her, but not be sarcastic. And even if you are sarcastic, maybe you minimize how often you use your sarcasm, because then it'll have that much more impact. But if you are constantly sarcastic, you are likely going to, like, one of the things that I've heard from a wife about her husband that I don't think he even realized he was doing until we were talking. And it wasn't even a counseling session, by the way. This was just me hanging out with a couple of I guess they're a family acquaintance. And she's like, well, he's just always sarcastic. I don't know how we got on the topic, but when she said that, he looked at her and he's like, well, I don't always try to be sarcastic. I don't mean to be sarcastic. And she's like, well, you know, when you are sarcastic, you come off as this rude jerk sometimes. And I just kind of laugh it off. Now, talk about me sitting there, and it wasn't awkward for me because I've heard this discussion before. But it was awkward that I wasn't trying to even stir the pot on anything. I think I asked him a question of like, are you always this straightforward? I think that's what I said. And being sarcastic myself, just messing with the guy, and she responded, and that turned into a discussion. Now, it wasn't like this crazy epic argument or anything like that, okay? It was just this small little opportunity for them to discuss what sarcasm does to their marriage. And the husband had no idea that this was impacting his wife that way. And this is the reason why I want to warn you about being sarcastic, or at least using sarcasm, thinking that that's going to bring humor into your relationship, and that your wife is going to receive that the way that you intend for it to be received. That's all I want to say about that. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast there. Now, this was the final episode of the Marriage Success Series. I'm going to be coming back with some more episodes and topics and things of that sort. But here's what I would ask from all of the listeners, the regular listeners. Go ahead and send me an email of the things that you would like to hear on this podcast as I start to tailor my outlines and my schedule and my topics. I just want to make sure that I'm meeting the need of the audience that's listening to this podcast. And the best way that I can do that is by hearing from you. So in the show notes or the description box, regardless of where you are listening to this podcast on, you can find my email, which is husbandcoach2020@gmail.com. And you can just send me a quick note, say, hey, Chris, I would love to hear an episode about this, or hey, Chris, I'm having this challenge in my marriage. What would you suggest I do? Things of that sort. All right. And if it's something that I believe I'm able to help coach you through, and it's something that would be overly generalized, then I will absolutely create an episode about it. And I will not mention who sent the email. So your name will be anonymous, or the question, the topic will be anonymous. It just helps me get an idea of where I should start driving the future episodes of this podcast. So if that's something you are interested in partnering with me in, then I would greatly appreciate it. But if you just have a general question, not even about like, hey, this is a topic I would like you to cover on the podcast, then just send me an email. Say, hey, Chris, I have this question. Can you help me with this? And I will be more than happy to help you, irregardless of creating a podcast around it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. So until the next time, I want you guys to find a way to love your wife every day. Peace.